Watch that whistle closely. Listen to the haunting silence coming from the veteran enforcers. Team USA just wrapped their FIA World Cup qualifiers. But the biggest shock from this tournament didn't even come from the players themselves. It came straight from the refs. Welcome back to WNBA Pro. Lock the doors right now. Mute your phone and give me your full focus. We are about to expose something that will shatter the manufactured reality of the entire WNBA establishment. What if the global leaders of basketball just accidentally leaked the ultimate truth? We are talking about the most coordinated sabotage in pro sports history. What if I told you? The fair officiating we just saw overseas proves the WNBA refs have been working under a corrupt and highly biased mandate. Their goal? To artificially crush the greatest offensive powerhouse the game has ever seen. The major sports networks, the paid-off journalists, and the compromised executives in the league office are terrified of where this conversation is going. They want you to ignore the blatant double standard that was just broadcast to the entire world. They want you to buy the corporate lie, but you are not just a casual fan. You are a high-level observer. And experts like you know how to read the raw tape. This isn't just about a different style of calling the game. We are witnessing the public exposure of a corporate ring orchestrated by a terrified and deeply insecure veteran establishment. They are desperately clinging to the final, rotting pieces of their own relevance in a changing league. Don't let those scripted PR statements fool you for even one single second. All through Caitlin Clark's rookie season, the league pushed a toxic and deeply offensive narrative on the fans. They claimed she just needed to get used to the pro game's physicality. They said the flagrant fouls and the dirty hits she took every single night were just a standard rite of passage. The refs kept their whistles silent. They intentionally allowed the veterans to bully and batter the league's billion-dollar star, hiding behind the cowardly excuse of letting them play. It was a documented campaign of intimidation meant to break her spirit and suppress her massive market value. Then the FIA qualifiers happened, and the international refs put the world on notice. They made the message very clear. We aren't doing what the WNBA does. Those international officials showed exactly how a game with Caitlin Clark should actually be called. You need to let that massive reality sink in for a moment. The FIA is an objective body, completely immune to the toxic locker room politics and petty jealousies of the veterans. Those international refs do not care about who has the most seniority. They don't care about the bruised egos of the legacy players. They don't follow the corrupt, unwritten rules of the WNBA country club. They only care about the actual laws of basketball. When Caitlin Clark stepped onto that international court, a miraculous and undeniable phenomenon took place. The physical assault stopped. The dirty hits simply went away. Why? Because those refs set the tone immediately. They actually penalized the illegal contact. They protected the scorers. They called the game with absolute integrity. What was the result? Without that physical sabotage, Caitlin Clark effortlessly and systematically tore right through the entire tournament. She dominated the world stage, winning MVP with an efficiency that exposed the WNBA's corrupt mandate. The world proved that when you stop the biased physical abuse, she is unstoppable. She is the most dangerous and valuable athletic asset on the face of the planet. Those refs ripped the mask off the WNBA establishment, proving the league has been suppressing their own CEO. But the pure terror felt by the establishment doesn't end with the officiating exposure. It reeks of a kind of deep arrogance and pure delusion found in those talks about the new collective bargaining agreement. Just as the FIA MVP news rattled the global sports market, a massive corporate surrender happened in New York City. Billionaire owners and the union reached a verbal deal on a historic new CBA. Before the ink even dried on that term sheet, veteran leaders rushed to the mics to completely hijack the whole story. We have to talk about Breanna Stewart because her performance on this press tour is a stunning, deeply offensive display of confusion that perfectly shows the entitlement of the league's old guard. It is definitely not final yet. I won't get too specific on details right now, but just know this new CBA is going to be historic. It will create generational wealth for players at every level, and we are really excited. Listen to the sheer arrogance in that statement, historic generational success. It is unbelievable. I need you to see the total lack of business sense in that deeply offensive claim. These legacy veterans, the same ones who actively tried to bury Caitlin Clark in the media, and the same ones who let refs physically target her on the basketball court, are now telling the world they are the brilliant financial masterminds behind this new deal. They are desperately trying to trick fans into believing their tough talk earned this massive financial payout. It is a complete corporate fantasy. They did not just magically create this new money. They did not suddenly find a secret formula for wealth after 30 years of losing millions of dollars. They are shamelessly riding the coattails of the most powerful economic engine this sport has ever seen. These players are demanding big executive bonuses without actually doing any of the executive work. But the pure audacity of their public relations spin reaches its most terrifying peak when they claim ownership of the revenue and try to act like they are partners with the WNBA. You know, we are now part of a revenue-sharing system and we will see the fruits of our labor like never before. Let me repeat that brutal, weaponized statement so the billionaire executives hiding in their boardrooms can hear it with absolute clarity. We will see the fruits of our labor. Just stop and let the total delusion of that phrase sink in. The fruits of their labor. For 30 years, the WNBA relied on a failing subsidized money model. Scrapping for tiny TV deals and struggling to stay relevant in American sports, these veterans worked for years. And that work produced empty arenas, invisible television ratings, and a league that needed constant financial rescues from the NBA. Then, a generational phenomenon arrived from the state of Iowa. She crushed college TV records and sold out every single arena she played in. She violently changed the game for merchandise, sponsorships, and global interest in the entire league. She forced the big TV networks to burn their old deals and sign a multi-billion-dollar media contract. This whole financial boom, the rising salary cap, and the private flights are all paid for by the Caitlin Clark stimulus package. And yet, Breanna Stewart and the veteran establishment have the sheer audacity to claim that this massive influx of global capital is the fruit of their labor. It is an absolute, undeniable attempt at corporate extortion built on fake, manipulated, and politically driven lies. They are trying to hijack the money generated purely by Caitlin Clark's star power, and they are doing it with a straight face. If you thought the delusion could not possibly get any worse, if you thought they had reached the ceiling of their gaslighting, you are underestimating how desperate this old hierarchy really is. Because Breanna Stewart was not finished yet. When specifically asked about the catalyst for this massive new collective bargaining agreement, she gave the most absurd and mathematically broken statement in the history of sports media. Regarding those WNBA negotiations, what is your take on all that? Honestly, I think what we really took from Unrivaled was the way players were treated. We set a high standard to make sure every single person had access to everything they needed to grow their game and build their basketball careers. Build their game in a way where I need you to analyze the mathematically impossible, completely arrogant framing of this particular answer. Breanna Stewart actually looked global media in the eye and claimed that her unrivaled league, her personal off-season side project, was the real force that pushed the WNBA to improve player conditions. She is trying to rewrite history right in front of our faces. She is boldly claiming that a brand new league, a league that completely bombed in the Nielsen ratings, a league that hit rock bottom, barely averaging 120,000 viewers on TV, is somehow the spark for a multi-billion-dollar collective bargaining agreement. Do you understand the level of corporate fraud it takes to even make a statement like that? She is ignoring the star who pulls 334,000 viewers on a secondary channel for a random Thursday afternoon game. She is totally ignoring the billion-dollar point guard who just swept the FIA qualifiers and secured the International MVP trophy. She is actively trying to erase the undeniable mathematical reality of the free market just to artificially validate her own massive ego and her failed business venture. It is a truly staggering display of cognitive dissonance. They are absolutely terrified of admitting the truth. They are paralyzed because a 24-year-old is now the undisputed dictator of their entire financial system. We have to move this critical conversation to a macroeconomic level right now. If you are just blindly listening to the polite, heavily sanitized sound bites from some podcast and celebrating the new CBA like an uninformed fan, You are entirely missing the massive multi-billion-dollar global war being waged in the background. You have to understand the terrifying desperation radiating from the WNBA establishment right now. The Players' Union went to war with the billionaire owners in a scorched earth battle over revenue sharing. The legacy veterans pounded their fists on the tables, making demands, arrogantly demanding a massive slice of the entire economic pie. But the billionaire owners knew the truth. They saw the FIBA officiating expose and the league's corrupt physical mandate. They watched Caitlin Clark dominate the international stage the moment the playing field was finally leveled. They saw the embarrassing viewership numbers for those alternative leagues led by the veteran players. The billionaires realized they held all the leverage and completely called the bluff of the Players' Union. The union threatened a lockout, but they had absolutely zero market value on their own. If they locked out the season, they would be setting fire to the only winning lottery ticket they have ever possessed. The owners boldly pushed all their chips to the middle of the table. The union folded immediately, securing a deal they are now desperately trying to take credit for. But the free market is not easily fooled by fake, manufactured press conferences. The fans watching at home, the millions of engaged consumers who pay for expensive tickets, buy the merchandise, and drive the television ratings that actually fund the league. They all see exactly what is going on. They saw the blatant, toxic physical sabotage permitted by the WNBA referees. They see the veterans stubbornly trying to steal credit for a financial boom they did not create. They see the greatest playmaker of this generation constantly being marginalized by an insecure and entitled old guard. The establishment is playing a very dangerous, destructive game of corporate chicken with their own fans, and they are aggressively destroying the goodwill of the very people who pay their massive salaries. The international tournament is over. Those FIA referees exposed the WNBA's corrupt physical mandate to the whole world. The new collective bargaining agreement is now verbally locked in. Massive expansion drafts and free agency periods are about to violently reshape this entire league. The WNBA preseason is rapidly approaching, and when that season officially tips off this May, the training wheels and petty politics are about to be violently, permanently ripped away. When Caitlin Clark steps onto the court in her Indiana Fever jersey, she's fighting more than just the defense. She is taking on a league establishment caught red-handed suppressing her talent. Now, she operates under a new CBA, her own star power funded, and she'll be handed the ultimate, undisputed green light to totally obliterate the competition without a single ounce of mercy, hesitation, or political correctness. The establishment spent a whole year trying to break her physical will. They even weaponized the referees. They twisted narratives and choked her touches, all to protect their own fragile illusions of relevance. But you cannot suppress a fundamental law of physics. And you definitely can't suppress the crushing weight of elite generational basketball leverage. The market has spoken. Viewers, sponsors, and global syndicates have already cast their financial votes in one massive, overwhelming, and totally undisputed wave. They don't care about the padded, selfish delusions of those legacy veterans. They only want raw, high-speed, hyper-efficient production. And Caitlin Clark is the only asset on the entire global board mathematically capable of delivering that specific product right now. That institutional gaslighting from Breanna Stewart is just the final, desperate, dying breath of a hierarchy that's become completely obsolete. The veteran establishment can keep their press conferences. They can brag about their new salaries and arrogantly claim credit for the massive revenue pie all they want. But the writing is already on the wall. The polite era of grow the game participation trophies is officially dead and buried. We've officially entered the ruthless, hyper-efficient era of absolute leverage. This hostile takeover is mathematically inevitable. The total liquidation of the old guard is coming fast. Welcome to the absolute meat grinder. Thanks for joining me on WNBA Pro, where we ruthlessly dissect the reality of the sports business. We don't do manufactured narratives or corporate spin here. We deal in the absolute, brutal truth of the numbers. For the most ruthless and honest analysis on the entire internet, smash that subscribe button and drop a massive like on this video right now. Let me know in the comments below. Now that FIA referees expose the league's corrupt officiating against Caitlin Clark, how terrifying will her scorched earth revenge tour be this upcoming season? I'll see you in the next breakdown. Don't you dare blink. This revolution is just getting started, and the weak will be left behind in the dust.